Betrayal in the Dark. It was a quiet night in late October. Maya was patrolling the empty streets of a small Texas town. The air carried a heavy, eerie stillness as the early morning hours approached. But that night, at around 2:15 a.m., the radio crackled to life. Maya received a call. Maya picked up the radio, and a woman's voice came through on the other end.
Police, please. I think there's someone in my house.
Maya could hear the woman's frantic, shallow breathing. But just as she was about to respond, the line went dead. She tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. Maya radioed a colleague to get the location. She stopped, squinting at her GPS. It was just a few blocks away, near the town's edge. Something about the woman's voice unsettled her, so she decided to check it out. Maya arrived at the location, but there was nothing, just an empty lot. The wind whistled softly, rustling through the tall, dry grass. She checked her GPS again. The location was correct, but there was no house, just emptiness. In the distance, a faint light flickered on the porch of an old farmhouse. Maya felt an odd pull toward it. She decided to walk to the farmhouse, thinking maybe they knew something. She parked and approached the door. Maya knocked, and after a few minutes, the door creaked open. A young man answered, looking tired, confused, and not at all like someone who had made a frantic emergency call.
"Can I help you, officer?"
he asked, squinting at Maya through the dim porch light. She explained the call, asking if he had seen or heard anything unusual. He shook his head, confusion plain on his face. She asked if he knew anyone else living nearby. The man slowly shook his head.
"No, there haven't been any houses for miles."
Maya thanked him and returned to her car, a deep unease settling in her stomach. Maya checked her radio again and tried calling the number one more time, but it still went straight to voicemail. She decided to head back to the station, but as Maya turned the key in the ignition, something caught her eye in the rearview mirror. Someone was sitting in the backseat. She could only see a faint silhouette, a hunched figure barely visible in the darkness. Maya's heart pounded as she tried to stay calm, reaching for her radio to call for backup. But before she could, a sharp blow struck the back of her head. Pain exploded. Her vision and everything around her faded into darkness. Maya woke up groggy, her head throbbing. Her hands were tied, and the air smelled of damp wood and rust. A single light bulb swung overhead, casting long, jagged shadows. Then, Maya saw her. It was her colleague, Jeff. Her face twisted into a manic grin, her eyes gleaming with cruelty.
You didn't expect to see me, did you? I've been waiting for this.
She continued, pacing with a gleaming knife in hand.
Do you know how long I had to smile while everyone adored you, Maya?
While I was stuck dealing with scraps, she lunged, pressing the blade close to Maya's face, taunting her about always being so calm. She wanted to see just how calm Maya would stay now. The cuts weren't deep, but they stung. Blood trickled down Maya's skin as Jeff mocked her, savoring every moment. Maya waited, biding her time. Jeff's grip on the knife loosened slightly as she got lost in her own rage. When she leaned in too close, Maya struck. She kicked Jeff's shin with all her strength, making her stumble. Maya's hands were still tied, but she used her shoulder to slam Jeff into the wall. The knife clattered to the floor. Jeff was dazed, giving Maya just enough time to grab it.
I feel sorry for you, Jeff.
Then, Maya bolted. Behind her, Jeff staggered out, screaming Maya's name, but her voice grew fainter as Maya sprinted toward her patrol car. Maya stumbled into the police station, covered in blood but alive. Her colleagues rushed toward her, their faces a mix of shock and concern. Maya told them everything. Jeff was arrested. She sat calmly, as if nothing had happened, but her eyes still carried pure malice. A few weeks later, Maya drove past the place where it all began. But now, she understood. Sometimes the monsters we fear don't hide in the darkness. They stand right beside us, wearing friendly faces.
La lluvia golpeaba con fuerza el parabrisas mientras Mina conducía por una carretera desolada, sus faros apenas logrando atravesar el aguacero torrencial. Era una viajera solitaria, atraída por la exploración y la emoción de descubrir nuevos lugares. Noches como esta le eran familiares, conduciendo por caminos desconocidos, buscando nuevas experiencias, cuando vio un letrero emerger de la oscuridad que decía: «Bienvenidos a Cottage City». Una ola de alivio la inundó. Mina siguió conduciendo, esperando que el pueblo le ofreciera algún respiro de la tormenta. Condujo lentamente por las calles tranquilas. El pueblo parecía congelado en el tiempo. Una casa le llamó la atención, una estructura en ruinas al borde de la carretera, abandonada e inquietante. Sus paredes estaban pintadas con grafitis con advertencias como «Mantente alejado», «Maligno» y «No vuelvas». Cruces de madera estaban clavadas sin cuidado en el porche y la puerta, como si alguien hubiera intentado ahuyentar algo que estaba adentro. La curiosidad pudo más que ella. Mina se detuvo, salió a la lluvia y encendió su linterna. Se quedó afuera, su linterna iluminando las palabras descoloridas. Mientras apuntaba el as hacia la casa, se congeló. En la ventana del piso de arriba, una niña estaba de pie mirándola fijamente. Su rostro estaba pálido, con ojeras oscuras bajo sus hinchados ojos rojos, como si no hubiera dormido en días. No se movía, solo observaba a Mina con una mirada vacía. Mina se estremeció y gritó: «Hola, ¿estás aquí sola? ¿Necesitas ayuda?». Mencionó que estaba buscando un lugar para quedarse. La niña inclinó la cabeza, su expresión no cambió, pero su mirada parecía penetrar a través de Mina. Preguntó por qué Mina estaba allí y le advirtió que no debería haber venido. Luego la niña habló: «¿Viniste a verla?». Era una pregunta inquietante, una que envió un escalofrío a través de Mina. Había asumido que el lugar estaba abandonado. Mina preguntó por qué la niña estaba sola y dónde estaba. La niña sonrió de repente, una sonrisa retorcida e inquietante, y respondió: ella está esperando un reemplazo. Los ojos de la niña se desviaron más allá de Mina, su rostro se retorció en terror. Una fuerte ráfaga de viento aulló, sacudiendo las puertas de la vieja casa. De repente, una mano tocó a Mina por detrás. Mina se dio la vuelta para ver a una anciana de pie detrás de ella, sosteniendo una linterna. La expresión de confusión en su rostro sugería que no tenía idea de por qué Mina estaba parada frente a la casa abandonada. Mina explicó que solo era una viajera que buscaba refugio de la tormenta. Le contó a la anciana sobre la niña que había visto a través de la ventana, pero la mujer insistió en que solo era la imaginación de Mina. Mina se enteró de que el hotel más cercano aún estaba a 1 hora en coche y la mujer le ofreció un lugar para pasar la noche en su casa. Mina aceptó su invitación. A Mina le costaba creer que la niña que había visto en la casa abandonada era simplemente un producto de su imaginación. Sin embargo, Mina no podía sacudirse la sensación de que esta mujer sabía más de lo que dejaba ver. La casa era tan antigua como su exterior sugería. Los muebles eran viejos, las paredes estaban llenas de estanterías polvorientas y fotografías descoloridas. La mujer, que se presentó como Lena, condujo a Mina a un asiento cerca de la chimenea. Armándose de valor, Mina le preguntó a Lena sobre la casa abandonada. Lena le contó a Mina que hace muchos años se había mudado aquí con su padre. No había muchos niños en el vecindario, así que rápidamente se hizo amiga de una niña llamada Lily. La familia de Lily era grande y animada, su casa siempre llena de risas. La tía de Lily, una mujer cálida y amable, siempre tenía dulces para los niños, especialmente para Lily. Pero un día su tía falleció repentinamente. Toda la familia estaba desconsolada, todos excepto Lily. La niña no derramó una sola lágrima, ni dijo una palabra. Lily simplemente se quedó en el funeral de su tía, inmóvil, con los ojos sin vida, incluso cuando la bajaron a la tumba. Lily cambió después de ese día. Rara vez salía y pasaba horas sola en su habitación. Lily se quedaba en su habitación con su tablero Ouija. Ella dijo que su tía le había enseñado a usarlo y pasaba horas tratando de hablar con ella. Mientras Lena continuaba su historia, Mina casi podía imaginar los acontecimientos desarrollándose. Algo había cambiado en la niña ese día, algo oscuro y aterrador.
The Ghost of Cottage City. Then, she continued telling Mina about what the little girl had gone through since that day. Right after the girl's aunt passed away, terrifying things began happening in that house. Around midnight, Lily's mother started hearing strange noises coming from her room. Scratching sounds, like fingernails scraping against the walls. Lily lay awake, eyes wide open, staring at something in the darkness. She felt a presence, something lurking beside her bed, watching her. Mrs. Lena leaned forward. She told Mina how Lily had confided in her older friend, saying she could feel eyes watching her every night, standing at the edge of her bed, silent yet terrifying. The next morning, Lily's mother checked her bed and discovered scratch marks on the mattress. Even more disturbingly, she found similar marks on Lily's own skin. Lily would scream, sometimes even laugh loudly in the middle of the night. Her voice would change, becoming rough, distorted, and filled with pain. Lily's mother rushed in, only to find her alone, trembling, her eyes filled with terror. The little girl spoke of them, shadowy figures. They would gather around her bed, staring with their hollow mouths, open in a silent scream. They all knew Lily was different. Everyone sensed that something had invaded her, but no one could stop it or help her. Mina shuddered as the old woman recounted the family's desperate decision to call for an exorcism. Lily's family summoned priests to perform an exorcism. Father Raymond was one of them, and he placed a crucifix under Lily's pillow, hoping to drive away whatever haunted the house. The ritual began, whispered Latin prayers filling the room. The exorcism turned chaotic. Lily writhed on the bed, growling like an animal, as if the crucifix was causing her unbearable pain. Objects flew across the room, and the crucifix seemed to burn her, sending her into a violent rage. Latin phrases poured from Lily's mouth, mixed with a hoarse, guttural laughter. Her body twisted in unnatural ways, eyes staring at something invisible. Father Raymond performed many exorcisms on Lily, and she endured tremendous suffering. During the exorcisms, Lily would roll and vomit, then break into uncontrollable laughter. That voice, it was like a demon disguised in a child's body, coming from the depths of darkness. Once, during an exorcism, Lily suddenly broke free from the priest's hold and lunged at the metal bed frame. She swung it wildly, slashing at the arm of one of the priests, forcing them to halt the ritual. On the night of the final exorcism, words appeared on Lily's body, as if an invisible force was carving them into her skin with a sharp blade. On the last night, 3 priests conducted the final exorcism on Lily, and they even witnessed her body levitating above the bed. As they recited the final incantation, Lily's body collapsed onto the bed, motionless. Everyone believed she had been freed. Lily's family moved away soon after, and no one ever saw her again. The people living near the house avoided it, cursing its existence. Some families even left the area due to the strange, unexplainable occurrences. She told Mina that some believed Lily's spirit never left, that she was still trapped inside the house. Mina shivered, recalling the grinning girl in the window, her eyes black and hollow. Mina shared what she had seen. Hesitantly, she mentioned that the girl looked no older than 14. The old woman slowly nodded and confirmed that was exactly Lily's age when she disappeared. Mina was frozen by what she heard. The woman pointed to a small room under the stairs, offering it as a place for her to sleep. She warned Mina once more to stay away from the exorcism house before heading upstairs. Lying on the bed, Mina stared at the ceiling, wide awake, unable to shake the image of the girl from her mind. She wondered, What if the woman hadn't arrived? Would she have been the next one, just as the girl had said? The sun finally rose, but the memories of the night clung to Mina. She thanked Lena and left, yet the questions remained. Did Lily die during the exorcism? Was her soul trapped forever, or had something darker consumed her? But one thing was certain: Mina would never return to Cottage City again. Nightmares behind the mascot outfit. The stadium was filled with energy, and the fans cheered excitedly as the game began. Thomas sat next to his father, not particularly interested, but his eyes kept drifting toward the mascots moving around the field. What caught his attention the most was the Miami Dolphins mascot, a towering, massive dolphin with a gray body and deep-set blue eyes. However, his excitement soon turned into unease as he noticed the mascot's strange behavior and unsettling appearance. The mascot stared directly at Thomas, making him feel dizzy and uncomfortable. He told his father, but his father paid no attention. Feeling uneasy, Thomas lied to his father, saying he needed to use the restroom to get away from the unsettling mascot. Distracted by the game, his father absent-mindedly allowed him to go alone. The stadium restroom was empty when he entered. Thomas locked himself inside a stall, sitting down, trying to shake off the strange feeling in his stomach. The tension in the restroom escalated as someone else walked in. Heavy footsteps approached and stopped right outside his stall.
Hello, kid.
Thomas froze.
I can hear you breathing.
Then came a strange, unsettling giggle. He covered his mouth, too terrified to respond or even breathe loudly. The man had a deep, warm voice and kept asking if the boy needed help, insisting that he wanted to play with him. The man's words sent chills down Thomas's spine, but he decided to remain silent. After a while, Thomas thought the man had left, so he finally gathered the courage to push the stall door open. But at that moment, he stopped in his tracks. Thomas saw the mascot's head, but this time, it had fallen off. Now, the mascot's head had been replaced with a man's face. A twisted grin stretched across it.
I'm not a dolphin, kid. You know that.
The man said. Thomas panicked, tears welling in his eyes. He turned to run away from the man. Before Thomas could react, the man grabbed him and forced him to the ground. His screams echoed through the restroom, but no one could hear them over the roaring noise of the stadium. The man continued grinning as he pinned Thomas to the ground, holding him in a suffocating grip. But then, in a desperate fight for survival, Thomas heard his father's voice from outside the restroom. The man seemed to hesitate for a moment before releasing Thomas and turning toward the door. Thomas screamed, and at that moment, his father burst in, shoving the man aside and landing several strong blows on him. The man in the dolphin suit tried to flee. He didn't get far. Within seconds, he was tackled, handcuffed, and dragged away while screaming. The next day, the police revealed everything. The man in the dolphin suit was not the real mascot. He had been sneaking into stadiums for years, blending in with the mascots to avoid suspicion. He targeted boys who wandered off alone. Unlike Thomas, some of them were never seen again. Authorities had been searching for him for a long time, but he had always slipped through their grasp until now. In his apartment, they found horrifying evidence photos, names and stolen belongings from previous victims. After that day, Thomas's father changed. He paid more attention to him, something Thomas never thought would happen. Sometimes, when passing a stadium, Thomas still glanced at the mascots. How many other children had almost never made it home? He was one of the lucky ones, and he would never forget that. The Predator at Midnight. It was an ordinary evening. Sophie's brother had a few friends over, and they decided to get pizza from a well-known pizza chain in Arizona called Fired Pie. They had to bring along their husky puppy, Frosty, since he was still too mischievous to be left home alone. When they arrived, Sophie didn't feel like getting out of the car. She was feeling lazy. Her brother didn't want to leave her alone outside, but since Frosty couldn't go inside the restaurant, he stayed in the car with Sophie. The parking lot was pitch dark. Sophie sat in the back seat, nearly lying down as she scrolled through her phone. As she relaxed, Frosty began whining and barking, an unusual reaction that confused Sophie. At first, she assumed he was just restless from being stuck in the car, so she gently patted him to calm him down. But Frosty's barking grew more aggressive, and Sophie froze when she caught something in the reflection of the rearview mirror. A man in a black hoodie and mask, staring directly at her. Terrified, Sophie screamed and turned to face the man, who was trying to open the car door. The doors were locked, but he shouted at her, demanding she open them. Frozen in fear, 14-year-old Sophie didn't know what to do. Frosty stomped on her as he barked furiously at the man, snapping Sophie back to reality if she didn't act fast. Something terrible was going to happen. Sophie mustered the courage to react. In a moment of panic, she told the man to leave and threatened to call the police if he didn't. A strange silence followed, making Sophie believe the man had left. As she looked around, she saw nothing. No one was there. So she decided to get out of the car and run toward the restaurant, with Frosty by her side. However, as Sophie ran toward the restaurant, someone grabbed her from behind, covering her mouth with a cloth. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Frosty bolting toward the restaurant, barking frantically. Then, Sophie lost consciousness. Later, Sophie woke up in a hospital bed, her body aching and disoriented, as if she had been tossed around. Sophie looked around and saw her mother and brother, both visibly worried. She asked them what had happened and learned that Frosty was the hero that night. They told her that Frosty had run to the restaurant entrance, catching the attention of the staff. As Frosty barked and drew attention, Sophie's brother sensed that something was wrong and rushed toward the parking lot. Upon reaching the parking lot and not seeing Sophie inside, he immediately began calling the police. Then, once again, Frosty barked at something. Seeing Frosty's urgency, he followed the dog. Frosty sniffed around and led him to a suspicious-looking truck parked nearby. Her brother walked around the vehicle to look inside and saw blood on the back door of the truck. Inside, he saw Sophie tied up with rope and gagged. Suddenly, the attacker emerged from around the truck, holding a knife. Frosty barked fiercely, once again warning him of the danger. Danger was imminent. He turned just in time to see the man charging at him with a blood-stained knife. In a desperate attempt to protect his sister, Sophie's brother lunged at the attacker. Nearby witnesses saw the struggle and rushed in, helping him subdue the man and take the knife away. After everything, the investigation revealed that the man was a human trafficker. He had likely planned to kidnap and sell Sophie, but Frosty's bravery and loyalty had saved her life. Though Sophie was physically unharmed, the trauma of the event haunted her for weeks. She couldn't shake the fear of what could have happened if Frosty hadn't been there. The mysterious harmony from the ancient piano. Nee, a young woman in her early 20s, stepped into a small, dimly lit antique shop in a quiet neighborhood. The shop was cluttered with antiques, old books, worn furniture, dusty frames, and a few musical instruments scattered around. The air reeked of aged wood and forgotten memories. Nee walked past the counter where the shopkeeper stood. He stared at her with wide, unblinking eyes, as if he had been waiting. His face was gaunt, his skin pale. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was strange.
You found the piano. It's calling you. It will begin soon.
The word sent a chill down her spine, since she hadn't mentioned the piano. The atmosphere grew odd. She decided to look around briefly, and leave quickly. Then, Nee's gaze landed on a piano, old and tucked away in the corner of the shop. Despite its age, its darkened wood seemed to exude a mysterious allure. She brushed her fingers lightly over the keys. The instrument's delicate beauty starkly contrasted its eerie presence, making it irresistible. She approached the counter to face the man again. This time, she noticed his hands were marked with faint, dark scars, as if burned or clawed repeatedly, the lines deep and jagged. She decided to take the piano and leave. The door chimed behind her, and she turned to see the shopkeeper standing at the window, staring at her unblinkingly as she walked away. From the moment she placed it in her room, strange things began to happen. Nee began to play the piano softly, trying to familiarize herself with its peculiar presence. The keys, though old, worked, but felt strange beneath her fingers. Suddenly, Nee stopped playing. The music lingered in the air for a moment before dissolving into faint whispers. She stood, heart racing, unsure of what had just happened. One night, after a restless sleep, she returned to the piano. Nye found a yellowed sheet of music tucked among the piano strings. Curious yet uneasy, she played it, only to discover the notes resonated in an inexplicable way. It felt as though the notes were alive, playing themselves before her fingers touched the keys. Unintentionally, Nee had begun to unlock the tragic history of the piano's previous owner. She continued to play, unable to understand why she couldn't stop. She heard a faint voice whispering in her ear, speaking in ancient language. The words seemed to echo in her mind, filling her thoughts. She stood up abruptly, thinking she was probably too tired, and decided to head to her room and sleep. Nee drifted into slumber after a tense day. She was no longer in her room, but found herself in a grand concert hall. The room was empty, except for a grand piano at its center, and dim light from antique chandeliers that looked decades old. As Nee approached the piano, she saw a tall, gaunt man seated at the keys. He wore an old black suit, but his sunken eyes and pale skin made him look like a wax statue. Nee called out,
"Who's there?"
The man slowly turned around. His gaze pierced through Nee, and his voice echoed like a distant whisper.
I've waited a long time.
Nee tried to step back, but it felt like her feet were pinned to the floor. The man glided closer, not moving his legs, as if floating on air. Then the man pointed toward an old table nearby. On it lay a dusty sheet of music titled Sonata of Eternity.
There's not much time left. Only this melody can save us, or drown us both.
Before Nee could respond, the space around her twisted into a black vortex, engulfing her. She woke up with a start, drenched in sweat, clutching a corner of her blanket. Everything around her was silent. The mysterious harmony from the ancient piano. The dream not only left a haunting impression, but also led Nee to crucial details in reality. Perhaps she had unwittingly opened a door, allowing the spirits and tragic memories of the composer to resurface. She could still recall the image of the man struggling amidst the shadows, his eyes filled with despair, as if begging her to uncover the truth. She stopped playing the piano. For days, she couldn't bring herself to touch the instrument. Night after night, Nye heard whispers growing louder and more persistent, making everything feel increasingly unbearable.
Help me. Free me from the curse.
These words seemed to come from the trapped soul of the composer, still bound to the piano through his music. Waking in despair, Nee approached the piano, slowly sitting down. She noticed a small, faint mirror appearing behind the instrument. Nee cautiously wiped the dust from the mirror. Beneath the grime, the figure of a man slowly emerged. The gaunt man, his deep, dark eyes locked onto hers. He said nothing, but his gaze was intense, almost pleading. as if trying to convey something. After staring into the mirror, Nee saw words gradually appear on the glass. The crooked writing seemed as though someone was etching it from the other side. "You have only one chance." Then his bony, emaciated hand reached out from the mirror, grasping toward her, begging for salvation. "Understand the final rhythm before you play."
Please, help me. Save me.
A weight pressed against her chest before everything returned to normal. Nee realized she had to complete the sonata. The only way to break the curse was to finish the music she had started. She was plunged into despair and fear as she realized the price of freeing him. If she didn't play the final sonata, the curse would claim her as well. As Nee studied the sheet music, every note seemed distorted, warning her. It revealed the words, "When the piano begins to play, you must finish the music before the light in the mirror fades. If not, the door will close forever." Nee swallowed hard, feeling the weight pressing down on her shoulders. Time was running out. It could happen at any moment. In her darkest hour, Nee sat before the piano, determined to break the curse. The clock struck midnight. The room was ice cold, and the music filled the air like an oppressive weight. Nee's fingers trembled as she began to play the sonata, the final piece in the composer's symphony of sorrow. But as she neared the final notes, Nee realized the sheet music was incomplete. A note had been erased, forcing her to rely on her intuition to finish the piece. She couldn't stop now. Then the mirror behind the piano shattered. Startled, she paused for half a second but couldn't stop. The gaunt figure of the man seemed to crack with the mirror, his eyes filled with despair.
Save me. Be careful. If you fail, you will take my place.
He cried out, his voice laced with agony. Nee played the final note, placing all her faith in her intuition. In the last moment of the sonata, the piano emitted a piercing sound. A brilliant light burst from the mirror, and she felt the entire room being drawn into the vortex. The man's figure vanished, and the room suddenly fell silent. In the ensuing silence, the figure in the mirror was gone, leaving behind a whispered,
"Thank you."
The room felt lighter, as if both their burdens had been lifted. When the light faded, Nee found herself sitting in her quiet room, all the strings of her instrument broken, and the mirror shattered. Exhausted, Nee collapsed on the piano. Perhaps everything was truly over, and fortunately, she had completed it. But deep down, Nee didn't know if she would ever truly escape the haunting melodies that had once drowned her.